Are streaming services better than cinemas? Today, we're going to try and find out. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Are you sure you can't hear you over the intro because that happened last time? What's up, guys? I'm Tommy Bowyer. I'm joined today by Matthew Chollerton.
Hello.
And this is a follow-up to a video I did last week on whether cinemas are going to survive the pandemic. Now, in that video, I explained how cinemas have been struggling during the pandemic for obvious reasons. And one of the main reasons which can be seen that why they are struggling is, of course, the emerging popularity of streaming services. Now, streaming services have become very popular, especially in a lockdown where no one can really leave their home. So, in order for people to see new films, they've gone towards streaming services. So, the main thing about streaming services is they've been developing for a while. We've had things like Disney Plus and that already, so it's not a new thing. The main difference is that certain studios have decided to release new films on streaming services rather than having them released in cinemas. Now, there's been a ton of examples of this. A Scooby-Doo film, which would have released last year, released on a streaming service. And probably the biggest one out of the lot of them, Wonder Woman, the sequel, that released on a streaming service. To actually quite a lot of controversy, because some people were saying that should not be released on a streaming service. It should wait for cinemas, because a lot of cinemas are concerned that if studios start releasing all of their films on streaming services, then cinemas are really going to struggle to get it together after the pandemic. Now, it's clear not every studio has done this. Marvel Studios is remaining very much firm that they are waiting until cinemas are open, until they can release films. How long they can hold out on that until they're basically forced to release it on a streaming service, we don't know. Now, I personally have not had much experience with streaming services because I don't have any currently. That is why Matthew is here, because he knows a lot more about streaming services and has experiences with streaming service. So Matthew, you personally, could you tell us a little bit about streaming services, please?
Well, streaming services is the method of in which you can stream and transmit video content. No, no, we're not going to go talk about the scientific explanation as to how video is played via the internet on your screen, via encoding settings and video bit rates, and we're not going to discuss that. But video streaming services, big strides have been made, well, over the last decade with the likes of Netflix and Amazon Prime, especially, but even more so Netflix as the true king, the big Goliath of movie streaming services, which we've seen the likes of, Amazon Prime, Netflix. Now there's all sorts of new ones. You got Hulu Plus, HBO Max, Disney Plus, all sorts of are being out there. And this initially was more for as a platform to watch movies that have been released on, TV shows that have been released, and as a service where they can be released eventually, like how you would a DVD store. That's how it used to be, instead of having to go to the DVD store after you picked out a movie, you can just flick on Netflix or Amazon Prime or whatever, and you just pick out what you want to watch. And it used to just be all content. Like I said, if you were to go to the DVD store, content that's already been released and streamed and into cinemas or TV or whatnot, and that's how it used to be. But in the last half of the decade, there's been a massive push for these video content platforms to become essentially their own studios to actually generate and create their own content. So you've seen Amazon Prime and Netflix now actually produce and have their own film production, TV production units where they actually, they've poached quite a few big Hollywood names. For example, Amazon and Netflix, they've done some big Hollywood blockbusters. You've seen they've poached likes of Michael Bay. Will Smith has made exclusive movies for streaming platforms, and there's even more to come. And, the use of streaming platforms has been accelerated over the last year due to the current global pandemic, everyone's staying at home. So you can see why there's been a massive boom, even though that growth was going to happen eventually. So it's not just, we can't just say, oh, it's the global pandemic, which is why stream services are so popular at the moment. That can't be said, because they were becoming ever so popular before the global pandemic, and it just so happens with everyone staying at home, that's how most people are consuming content instead of going out to the cinema to see new releases. But you also said, Tommy, about Disney, holding on for not wanting to release their movies on Disney Plus, holding out for the cinemas, which I do applaud them for doing. But it sort of has worked into Marvel's ballroom, to be fair, because of the way they're directing and changing the Marvel Cinematic Universe. It sort of has played to their advantage. So Disney at the moment, they're doing a big push for TV shows of so within the mainstream MCU. So instead of, there you had all sorts of spin-off Marvel shows, you had Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and also just like cheap cuts of TV shows, whereas now they're properly pushing, big Hollywood production A-list stars into, these massive productions, but broken down into TV, well, in terms of like episodes, length and all that, into small little chunks for people to digest, which, yes, over the global pandemic has played really well, but it's also, is it a sign of the times as to where people are trying to go? We've seen Disney especially make the big splurges with Star Wars as well. The amount of Star Wars shows that they've also announced, and also Marvel's announced even more Marvel TV shows that they're doing as well. Even though, personally, I would still love to go to the cinema, which we will get into. But, streaming platforms have accelerated quite a lot from just consuming platforms into almost transforming to be the exclusive place to go to get new content.
Oh yeah, that's a very good point. And obviously, as you said, it was a growing trend already. It's not like it just came out of nowhere. And of course, yes, the entire nature of filmmaking and how films are shown is changing. I mean, it's no longer the idea that you have TV shows played predominantly by actors and actresses who work across TV shows. They might not be globally popular, they might be nationally popular, and that's why they're in them. And then you have the big films which have bigger stars which are more internationally popular. That's not the case now. TV shows like WandaVision, for example, having a lot of money and effort put into them and getting big named actors into the roles.
Then you have
which
Falcon
is something.
And Winter Soldier this month as well.
Oh yeah, exactly. Which is something like 10 years ago for an actor like Elizabeth Olsen, for example, to appear exclusively in a TV show. Someone would say you're being a bit stupid there, because it's not something that would happen back then. Now, of course, the way things are progressing, it looks like that's more happening now. And of course, the main thing a lot of people are saying, especially online, is the fact that when the country starts opening again, when the world starts opening again and cinemas are open, will people actually return to the cinema? Or will they be so used to streaming services and believe that there's so many positives of having streaming services that they would rather stay there than go to a cinema? Now, of course, it's something that there's no definitive or universal answer. It comes down strictly to your opinion. Me and Matthew are no different. We have opinions. We're trying to give evidence towards our opinions, although it is all based on opinions. It's not fact, so don't take anything in this video as fact, because it's not. Now, there are a number of advantages, in my personal opinion, that make cinemas superior to streaming services. One of them is, of course, the big screen. When you go to a cinema, the lights are dimmed, there's surround sound normally, and then the film comes on the big screen. And sitting there, that hardly anyone in that cinema probably has ever seen this film before, and they're experiencing it with you. Everything that happens in that film, you have seen in that cinema, at that specific moment in time with those specific people. The majority of them you're probably never going to see again.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, that is an experience a streaming service cannot give you. Now, I don't know if you have like an alternative thing to say about that, obviously, but I just don't think streaming services can compete with the idea of the big screen, the surround sound, and just the experience of cinema going in general.
No, for initial releases, definitely. Like, to be fair, I'll be honest, on streaming platforms and stuff, I don't really watch many movies on the streaming services. It tends to be, if I want to watch a movie, it's got to be something I want to go out and pick. Sometimes if I'm going to replay a movie, sometimes with how I am at the moment, with being at uni on my computer, sometimes it is easier to go on a streaming platform and play it that way. But it's not like, oh, I'm just going to flick through Netflix and think, oh, I'm going to stick that movie on. I don't consume movies in that way. If I want to rewatch a movie, it's got to be what I want to watch. And replayability is something that I would use streaming services for just the convenience sake. But for new releases, especially the experience of going to see like a new Marvel film, was a film I'm really excited for with friends and everything. Yes, it's great being able to stick on something, from the comfort of your own home, when you're just trying to relax. I do that with all sorts of TV shows on streaming platforms. I've binge watched quite a few TV shows, but I can't quite binge watch movies in the same way. But it's more the experience, the social experience, going to the cinema to see a film with friends that you enjoy. Yeah, with streaming services, you don't quite get that. To see a movie you've been anticipating, it's an event, and
Oh yeah,
good cinema is an event to go out and celebrate. And me just sitting in my room isn't really, as enjoyable when you're wanting to experience something you've been looking forward to. You're just like, oh yeah, I can't wait for this new movie to turn up. All I need to do is go to sleep and wake up, and I can just watch it as soon as I wake up, which isn't as exciting or isn't interesting to me. I am missing the experience of seeing big films at the cinema, and quite frankly, I'm looking forward to going back, because it's not only just the film. Yes, I am a big, tech buff. I love, the latest Dolby Atmos surround sound, the biggest screens, especially at my local cinema at my uni city. How that they've got the latest IMAX and Dolby Atmos surround systems, and when I went there last year and experienced that sound system, it was just incredible. And that's something, unless you're a millionaire and you can afford to implement your own home cinema with all that stuff, you're just not going to get. So in terms of
we should do that. We should do that.
Oh yeah, definitely.
We have the money. Yeah,
but in
yeah,
terms
definitely.
of just that viewing experience alone, you can't get that scale of scope of the amount of people going into cinema to enjoy something. But it's also the event, the social experience. And it's pretty much a day out to go, to meet up with friends, say, oh, let's go watch a movie. It's something to do, even if it is just a film that, okay, you're a bit bored. It might not be something you're anticipating, but how nice is it to say, oh, yeah, you're not up to much today. Do you want to just, go out and see a random film, just going out? It's a bit hard to say, oh, it's a bit different to say, oh, do you want to come around and just stick something on Netflix? And yeah, it's a bit different. It's very much different to that. So just the experience of going to the cinema is something I am definitely missing. But
that's something
as we said, it's of giving us opinions. We'll also in this video, it's more discussing what we want to happen, why we want it to happen, and also what we think may happen in the landscape of cinemas in the future as well.
Yeah. I think that's I completely agree with you, and you're right. Going to the cinema is an event. I mean, from personal experiences, me and you have gone to the cinema. I think one of the location we really enjoy going. We go to Cambridge for the day. Go there, have lunch, look around a bit, and then we head to the cinema, and then come out and go home. And it's a day. It's not just, oh, do you want to go and see this film? Because we've seen some films which are not exactly on our radar.
Yeah.
Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse is a prime example of that. I had no idea it was even being made. And we went to the cinema, made a day out of it. And that was great because it was a good film as well. But the day is something I remember as well. It's not so much just the cinema, it's the day you make out of that cinema. And I think that's a very good point in the sense of there are certain films that you see in a cinema which you will never forget. Historically, a lot of people remember the first time they heard that Darth Vader said he was Luke Skywalker's father. Loads of people often bring that up as they can remember sitting in the cinema and seeing that. For me and you, Matthew, it might be the conclusion of Avengers Endgame or Avengers Infinity War, you know, seeing
Mm.
that 10-year journey conclude on the big screen. I still remember exactly where we were. I
Yeah.
still remember some of the people who were in that cinema, one
Yeah.
person in particular, because she couldn't stop laughing, even when Iron Man died, which was very sad. And that's something, a streaming service. Yes, you may remember where you saw a certain thing in a streaming service happen for the first time. It's just like if you sat down and watched a TV show, you might remember uh, how you felt if like a character you're watching that TV show died or something, then you'll remember being there and seeing that happen. I just don't think that you get that same level of experience you would at cinema,
No.
because at a cinema, because it's a big experience, you know, it's they're so hyped. I mean, Endgame, Infinity War, they were such hyped films. I remember standing outside Infinity War, especially waiting to see this film, and everyone was just like so excited for this film. And you remember things like
Yeah.
that. With a streaming service, yes, you can get excited, but it's usually just you and a couple of friends. It's
And
not a
it's not as
massive event
grand
which
either.
loads of people enjoy. Yeah, it's not as grand. There's no real it's not massive like some would say maybe pantomime, you know, everyone going in and feeling a certain thing. It's just kind of sitting down and watching something which is released on Netflix or Amazon Prime, for example. Um, I mean, you've seen like WandaVision, for example. You've seen new episodes released. Is there that kind of, oh, I can't, you know, I'm looking forward to seeing the next one today? Does it ever
Um,
feel like that?
to be fair, for shows like that, yes, I would say like watching the next episode of WandaVision because it's released on a Friday or Saturday. It's the end of, for me at the moment, because we're in national lockdown, so you can't really do too much at the moment. But for me, this was the same for Mandalorian as well for me as well, because it's released on a Friday, which for me is the end of the working week for me. So it's just something to look forward to. I've done all my work for the week, so I'm just gonna relax for the evening and put this on. I'm quite looking forward to consuming this. Which, yes, I do enjoy that, but of course, it's not the big build up, the big hype to, counting down the days to see the new Avengers movie or whatnot. It's not quite the same. But yes, I do quite get enjoyment out of it, but it's completely different in terms of, yes, I'm looking forward to it because I'm just looking forward to, relaxing for the weekend and just consuming this and just, unwinding. Whereas Avengers Endgame, I was like, yes, I can't wait to go out and watch this fucking thing.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And I think that's a good point. Once again, that leads into another point I say in cinema's favor over streaming service is the fact that there's no disruption. Now, some of you will be sitting there saying you're a massive liar, people chewing popcorn, shouting, or in our case, someone going, ah!
To be fair, I've had the movie paused on me at the Majestic.
Yeah. Oh yeah, yeah, definitely. And if you go to a particularly poor cinema, sometimes the film could be stopped and then restarted, and all of the rest of it. The difference is when you watch something at home on a streaming service or on TV, there's always the ability you can have it in the background. I've often had the TV on while doing coursework,
Oh
while
yeah, I've done that.
studying. You know, even if I'm watching a film at home, I will occasionally check my phone just like to make sure I haven't got any messages or anything. You know, in a cinema, it's a lot more difficult to do that in the sense of, they do
You're
tell you
fully
not to use your
engaged.
mobile phones. Yeah. And you have to be fully engaged in it, especially as you usually pay at least £4.50, probably more, to watch it. So you feel invested in at least giving this film a chance. Now, there are some films you go and see and you really can't be asked and you just want to get out of there
Yeah.
as quick as you can. And then other films you're really, really invested in. The point is that it's a lot less likely you're going to get distracted watching a film in a cinema than you are at home, because at home you can pause it, you can get up, you
Yeah.
can come back to it. A lot of DVD players now, if you take the DVD out and leave it for a couple of days, put it back in, it will start exactly where you left it. It doesn't work like that in a cinema. You see it from beginning to end, and then you have an opinion on how you thought that film was. I think that's something streaming services can't really match, because
No.
obviously making streaming services a lot more portable and easy to control, yes, it does give the viewer more freedom, although it does mean, in my opinion, they don't have as much attention to the film that they are watching. They're more likely to get distracted at home than they are in a cinema.
Oh yeah, definitely. To be fair, the way I view streaming services and how I view them still, and what I want them to become, is a replacement to traditional television. Is what I see it as, and what I can, see it happening.
No, no,
At
no,
the
no, no, no. I
For
watch
TV
Casualty and Hobby
shows, I
City.
think
Don't
this
take
is
that
the
away.
way internet delivery is becoming the way. You've even seen it, with companies like Sky TV. They're starting to use more internet bandwidth than satellite TV to deliver content. Content on demand, I think, is where the industry is going in terms of TV shows and stuff. But for movies, I think cinemas will still have a place, will still remain. But obviously, you've seen companies release films on streaming platforms recently, with Warner Brothers and DC movies because of the global situation. And I hope going forward, cinemas will return. May 17th is when cinemas are meant to reopen in England. And when the global situation clears up, I hope cinemas can return. But obviously, it's going to be a bit different going forward in terms of pricing structure, maybe the experience with social distancing for a bit longer, and also the casualties of business in
Yeah.
lockdown, and smaller companies and some companies not being able to survive through the pandemic.
Yeah, I think that's a very good point. And I think that's the best point that's been made so far. I can see streaming services basically dwarfing TV. Like TV shows are in massive decline. If you just look at some of the shows I watch, for example, shows like Casualty and Holby City at the start of the 21st century used to get over sometimes 18 million viewers. Now they struggle to get between 4 or 5 million viewers.
No,
So
I would
there's a
still
natural decline.
argue shows like that will still be around. It's
Oh
more of
yeah,
how they're delivered, which I still think shows like that will still remain. It's just I think it will be more delivered within, you know, on demand via the internet streamed instead of traditional satellite media, which, okay, I can kind of see, like, sometimes for the family, like when a TV show was meant to be streaming or going live at a certain time. I remember it used to be a family event that we used to have to plan the day around, like, the new episode of Doctor Who, whatever, around that day.
yeah,
Whereas now you can be a bit more flexible when you want to watch, the new episode of Doctor Who on said day.
yeah. Oh yeah, I definitely agree with you on that. Merely what I was saying was that you're right. The audience of everyone sitting down to watch it at a certain time is not there anymore because people want more freedom now, and
Yep.
they've got that freedom. BBC iPlayer is a lot better now than it was 10 years ago. There's a lot you can access shows on there which have been off air for the past 10 years for a year. So obviously, I think streaming services are going to dwarf TV. I think TV will still have its place. Like shows will still be shown at certain times. I just think there'll be a lot more freedom that like shows like studios won't be worried if only let's say 3 million viewers watch it when it's on,
Hmm.
because they might get an additional 4 or 5 million viewers watch it online via streaming services. Then I think that will that will be the direction that it's going rather than just having TV shows. They'll be incorporated more with streaming services. I do, however, believe that with cinemas, I can't see streaming services really dwarfing cinemas in terms of their importance to society because cinemas have become a very well established a very well established figure in terms of when you meet up with friends, you have dates at cinemas sometimes. Cinemas have become like a clear point, especially for me and Matthew, of where you go to meet up with people and things like that.
Yep.
Now I know that sounds stupid because you can't talk in a cinema. You're still sharing the same experience with them watching a film though, which is sometimes a lot better than just talking to someone. And that is something that, once again, going back to a point about cinemas, is the fact that yes, you can get distracted at home with streaming service, but also you can't fast forward at a cinema. Now,
No.
let's say you're on a streaming service, and there's a bit where in the film you're watching where you think, oh, this is a bit slow, or a horror movie like, oh, this bit's really scary, so you fast forward it because you don't want to experience that. In a cinema, you can't do that. You have to at least experience what's happening on screen in its entirety. I think that's something you can easily try and avoid with streaming services. Does that make sense?
Yep.
I think especially with horror films and now with a streaming service, you can easily fast forward bits. In a cinema, you can't do that. You kind of have to put your hands over your eyes
Yep.
or something. So I think you're right. I think cinemas are going to change, like how they are. They're going to have to change. Small ones like the ones we have a small cinema in Kings Lynn near where we live. It's a relatively small one. It's only got three or four screens. I don't think ones like that will have a long-term future.
No.
I think big ones like IMAXs and things like that, they will survive purely because you can't experience something like that anywhere else on a streaming service unless you have a massive mansion with a built-in cinema room and all that. So I think cinemas will survive. I don't think they'll be as common as they have been. I
For
think they
now.
will now.
For this
Yeah.
year.
Oh yeah, for this year especially. Well, I think in the long term, I don't think they'll be as popular as they will be, and I think they may become more. Oh, we'll save up money and we'll go to the cinema. Not loads of money, but it's like
Yep.
it will be a massive event. It won't just be like, I wonder what's on at the cinema. Let's just go and see any film. I don't think things like that will be as common now. I think people would rather, as you said, flick through Netflix and just find a film and say, oh, do you want to watch this? Yeah, sure. It won't be like when you used to go to the cinema and say, oh, let's just go and see some random film. I don't think that will be as popular. I think streaming services will
Not
overtake
at the
cinemas in
moment.
that respect.
Where the way I think it's going to be is cinemas will make a triumphant return, though the players and just what companies survive and which companies, rise in the ashes of big global fallen empires. It will happen this summer. Cinemas are meant to reopen and allow people back in, though there's going to be all sorts of things of limited capacity. So this summer, cinemas aren't going to be the big craze because a lot of companies have delayed their movies, to the full, either the full, the James Bond's being pushed back to this autumn, Spider-Man, the new Spider-Man film.
Christmas
This year. So this summer, maybe not, and maybe not in the big volumes due to social distancing and limited capacity by law. But I think people have had enough of lockdown, and when they're told they're allowed to go and do it again, they will all flock in massive numbers because they've been sick of doing the same thing for almost a year now. So when they're given the order to go and see new blockbuster films again, I think they will. Though, with the reopening cinemas this summer, when there's not too many films, limited capacities, there's going to be some financial casualties in terms of what brands, or especially more independent cinemas, I would say. Yes, okay, you can argue that the big global brands, they've made enough money so they can sort of afford to soak up some of that damage and take a bit of a hit and return later on, whereas the smaller companies, you may see less of them open up, and you also may see changes such as ticket prices going up as well, which may deter some people from going to see the film.
Yeah.
So not only that, in terms of just the basic price of cinemas, which, to be fair, cinemas don't really make much money off of film tickets anyway. It's more of the things they sell with them, sweets, food, drink, and all sorts.
Oh yeah, and that is one thing in favour of streaming services. You don't have to pay the extortionate prices which
We
cinemas
never do anyway.
usually offer.
In.
Yeah, you're not supposed to say things like that. Keep that on the down low. Keep that on the down low. But yes, obviously, if there's ever a Tesco or Sainsbury's in sight, then definitely go there, buy some goodies because they're a lot cheaper. Especially if you have multi-packs, so you can buy 2 bags of chocolate instead of just one, which is always a good thing. And I think that's a good point you made, your last point, which is one I didn't consider, is the effect lockdown will have on people. And I think you're right. I mean, I know I feel like that. I think everyone will just want to flock to restaurants, bars, nightclubs, cinemas, and as an excuse to get out and get back to normal. So yeah, you never know. We might be sitting here in a couple of months and cinemas are once again booming, and streaming services are no longer a threat. Streaming services, I think, still pose a threat to TV
Yeah,
and
that's
and things like that. I think it will slowly take over that. However, I do believe that cinemas are safe for the time being, and I don't see anything rising to take over them anytime soon. So, thanks for watching, guys. I really do hope that you've enjoyed this discussion. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe in order to receive great and maybe even improved quality content in the future. And if you do like these discussions, then we are hopefully going to do some more. We're aiming for one a month at least, and I think we're going to stick to that unless Matthew decides to all of a sudden quit, which is possible. Which is possible. And I would also like to reiterate the disclaimer that I made during this video, that this is purely our opinions based on feelings rather than fact. So, because a couple of videos we've done have had a bit of controversy recently, so I just want to reiterate that this is not fact. You're quite happy to have an opinion of your own, and please feel free to share it with us, but never think that we're stating pure facts and we, like not being challenged, because that's not true. We're just basically giving our opinion, so everyone's entitled to their opinion. So, and anyway,
Yes.
I will see you in another one. I'd like to thank Matthew for being here, and goodbye.
Goodbye, everyone.
I'm probably screwed now. I couldn't resist saying